Welcome to the Enjoy a Cancer-Free Life podcast with Dr. Ted Koren, best-selling author of Cancer is Natural, So is the Cure. More than care for patients, Dr. Koren transforms lives. He teaches people an all-natural way to heal from and address the causes of cancer using the tools we all have within ourselves. On the podcast, Dr. Koren interviews other thought leaders in natural healing who share insights and information to help you live longer and better.
Why don't you tell a little bit about yourself, how you got this way? Where did you grow up? What was your childhood like? Had you become involved in this aspect of dentistry and healing?
Well, I grew up in Chicago and went to the University of Illinois, Tel Aviv University, got a degree in political science, a minor in Hebrew, and then got a master's in business. I started helping people in the professions. My father was a dentist, and they didn't know how to run a business. They had no concept. And so I'd sit down and try to show them, look, you have to figure out what your overhead is. I'd have a dozen dentists in a room, and they couldn't tell me what percentage of their income was from what procedures. This is before computers. And what they needed to know to run a successful business. They didn't know their overhead for anything. So at that point, I went ahead and said, hey, if these guys could be doctors, why can't I? I went back to school, got into my first science courses, took 2 years of solid courses in science, and then from there went ahead and got into dental school. I went to the University of Texas in San Antonio, graduated in my class, and went out to Arizona where there were no dental schools and opened up a practice after working for one or two people, which I found out wasn't very successful. So from there, I went ahead and opened up my practice and practiced general dentistry like everybody else. I was doing 10 root canals a month. I was doing mercury fillings because mercury is wonderful for you, according to the American Dental Association. And so after about 10 years of practicing, I started seeing people getting sick. I started seeing people, after doing a root canal, have a gallbladder surgery. And then I'd find out that they also had breast cancer, or they had complications and systems that I said, how could this happen? 10 months ago, you were the healthiest person in the world. So one day, I had a little girl come in. She's about 12 years old, cutest thing in the world, had a little tiny cavity in her upper left first premolar, the one after the canine, the big long tooth.
You remember it so clearly.
What's that?
You remember this so clearly.
Oh, it's like yesterday, because she was so sweet and so happy. I went ahead, I did a little tiny filling, put a mercury filling in there.
And this is what, as any dentist would have done.
Any traditional dentist would have done, yes. No protection for anybody because, the American Dental Association said this is like apple pie and ice cream. What more American can you get? So I went ahead, and about 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from the mom telling me that she was having problems. So the little girl came back. We checked her bite. Everything was fine. I said, no, there's no problem here. But her eye was twitching. So she went to her physician, who sent her to an optometrist, who sent her to an ophthalmologist, who's an MD. And the MD looked at it and says, this looks to be neurological because there's nothing wrong with your eye. The eye looks absolutely perfect. So we went ahead and she went to a neurologist. And the neurologist said to the parent, do you know what started this? She says, absolutely not. Well, let's go back 1 month before this occurred. And, of course, she had an appointment with Dr. Mike. That's me. So I go ahead, and I get a phone call and say, why don't you just come on in, we'll take it out. We'll just take the thing out and put a temporary in there and see if it changes anything.
You mean, by the thing, you meant the tooth or the mercury? Or what?
Just the mercury filling.
Just the filling.
I just took the filling out. Had no protection, no anything.
No.
And so I'm sitting there looking at this, and within 30 seconds, couldn't have been a minute, her eye stopped twitching. Now, her father worked for Motorola. and General Dynamics. And he turned around and he says, let's put another one of those back in and see if it comes. And I looked at him, I said, your daughter's not a guinea pig. I'm going to put this stuff in there. There's no charge for it today. And if this all clears up, then I'm never going to put another mercury filling in another person's mouth again. And from that day forward, I never used another mercury filling.
No, other dentists probably had seen things like that. How come you were able to actually put two and two together?
Well, I kind of listened to my patients, and I saw what had happened, and nothing could ever tell me that what I did in the first place didn't cause it, and I got it resolved. Very few people, if they don't know what's going on, they send them on to the next specialist. And the next specialist will figure it out. Well, anyway, it worked. And I put a composite resin filling in later, and everybody was happy. And then the family got a better job offer back in Kansas, and they went back to their family. I had one other incident come in. Jeff and Sue came in, a beautiful couple. And she had a mouthful of mercury fillings. And tooth number 14, which is your upper left first molar, had a huge filling in it. And I told them that there was some redecay and we needed to crown the tooth. So as I went ahead to do that, they said, well, she's having a lot more pain 2 weeks later, took an x-ray, found out it was abscessed. Well, meanwhile, I'm learning a little bit about root canals. Root canals are highly dangerous. And there is a book by Dr. Thomas Levy, L-E-V-Y. He is an internist cardiologist. He's retired. He's written 11 books on many different topics. The use of IV vitamin C is one of his books. He's done work with Hal Huggins, who is like the father of anti-mercury movement. He did It's All in Your Head, the MS Mystery, and many other books. I would say, please read what he's done. But Tom Levy published a book last year called The Hidden Epidemic, and it talks about the dangers of root canals. So
now, he's not the only one to have written about this. Weston Price did stuff. George Manig had done materials. But this is the way you got into it, I assume?
Well, actually, the way I got into it was I knew George Manig. George Manig had just passed away. Oh, I love George. George was great. He was so sharp until about his 94th or 6th birthday. He was one of the founders of the American Endodontic Association, one of the 19 men that started it.
And these were the root canal specialists.
Yes. And he
was the Hollywood dentist to the stars?
He was one of them, yes. And he also started getting into nutrition because he started reading Weston Price's work. And he was a writer, and he used to have a column on nutrition.
Oh, wow. Well, I want you to know that Sally Fallon of the Weston Price Foundation, the executive director, is on this podcast series also.
Well, Sally is, in my book, number one. She is very intelligent, and she has her sources, man. She could sit back and record or tell you so many things because, well, I know Sally personally, and I know that she knows a lot more people than I do because she's gotten out there. The Weston Price Foundation is a fantastic organization that I've belonged to for the last 20 or 30 years, in between there somewhere. Anyway, getting back to George Manig, George was told by somebody by the name of Hal Huggins that Weston Price had a special study done, 2 volumes, that talked about root canals. So George, being who he was, went into the section at the American Dental Association on ancient books. Ancient. It was 60 years old or something. But he got the original works by Weston Price that showed how he studied root canals, where he would take a root canal tooth that a patient had health problems, take the tooth out and implant it underneath the skin of rabbits, dogs, cats, but rabbits were their main source because they're so plentiful. And within 2 weeks, that rabbit would have the same disease that the human being had.
Such as kidney disease, arthritis,
heart disease, you name it. Any kind of disease there was, he got a correlation between the two. And he worked with Charles Mayo. There's another, I can't remember Frank's last name.
Oh, from the Mayo Clinic.
Yeah, from the Mayo Clinic. He was considered, Weston Price was considered top in his field. And he just turned around and took everybody by surprise. And he had a committee that other people were doing this. And, you know, today they say, oh, that's worthless scientific methods. They're outdated. They're out this. They were phenomenal. They were very systematic. And my son, who has a MD, PhD in bone morphology, saw their studies, and he says, you know, I don't think we could reproduce what they do or what they did because we don't have the skills that they had.
The quality was that good.
Yeah, it was that good. He just sat back and said, we got different methods today, but we don't sacrifice animals like that because people will be all upset. But
so why do you think, if his work was so great, it was ignored?
Well, it wasn't ignored. It was actually recognized, and people said this is going to threaten us. You know, you sit down, how many endodontists will sit there and tell you that if you get a root canal, we have increased your possibility of having a terminal disease by 60%, 20%, whatever the percentages were. They wouldn't do that because it's $1 billion practice. But now in the endodontic literature, you're going to find that there are studies showing the toxicity that is generated by root canals. So they just believe that all you got to do is a better root canal. The root canal itself is not bad, except when it's in a living body.
Oh, well, that sort of makes it easier to make a decision.
Yeah, well, but they don't tell you this decision. And I have had a state board that last year, they decided that what I was doing was wrong. And so I had a patient complain about something else, and they turned around and they said, you cannot be taking out root canal teeth that are perfectly healthy. Well, Boyd Haley, who is the past chairman of the chemistry department at the University of Kentucky, had a test called ALT, Affinity Labeling Technologies. And they would test 6 different enzymes in the ATP cycle in the cell. And that's the powerhouse, the mitochondria, that gives you energy. If your mitochondria aren't working, you die. So he was able to take this test and test gum disease and test root canals to see if they were toxic or not. And we did a study I was a part of. I think I submitted 500 to 600 root canal teeth. There were a total of 5,000 tested. And out of 5,000 teeth consecutively submitted, all 5,000 teeth were toxic. Different degrees of toxicity, but they were toxic.
Now, that's rather interesting you're saying this because Dr. Chen, who we know, who's going to be in this podcast series also, has said that cancer is a mitochondrial disease.
Well, of course it is. It's a degenerative disease.
And that the toxic teeth are damaging the mitochondria. That's a very close tie.
Yes, yeah. And any degenerative disease being treated by Western medicine, they overlook something called nutrition. If you don't have the building blocks to go in and build up the good things that you need, good luck. You're going to be harmed. You need your vitamin C every day. You need your B complex, your zinc, selenium. There's so many things, the B complexes, that are needed by the body. And if you don't supplement, our food chain doesn't have it in there. They're all chemically enhanced. So we're way behind when it comes to nutrition. But getting back to Dr. Meinig, I had the pleasure of meeting him. He was a part of the American Academy of Biological Dentistry and Medicine, which now today is called the International Academy of Biological Dentistry and Medicine, because we have chapters all over the world. And what is interesting with the present situation with the coronavirus, if you go into a traditional office, they're going to tell you, open up, we're going to start drilling. Well, what's the most dangerous thing that they're saying with the coronavirus? Vapors. Vapor going out of the mouth. So if you look and see with fast action videos, that goes all over the room. Well, biological dentists are prepared for this because we remove mercury. We use high suction. We use separate vacuums that are placed about 6 inches to a foot away from the mouth. So when those vapors come out of the patient's mouth, they get sucked up by this, and you, as a practitioner, your assistant, and the patient are protected. Of course, before we start working on a patient, before we do an exam, we have them rinse out with mouthwash. Mouthwash is going to kill 90 to 99% of the bad bacteria in your mouth, and it's very effective over the next hour. So if you're going to go back to a dentist, I'll tell you, find a good biological dentist that understands how to do safety procedures for removing mercury. They can be applied to any kind of filling, including your cleanings. You don't want an assistant, you don't want the hygienist going in there polishing your teeth and getting this spray all over the room. But
when I talk to patients, people, with chronic illness, it could be anything, cancer, it could be arthritis, could be MS or Lou Gehrig disease, ALS, whatever. My recommendations are always remove the mercury and get rid of the dead teeth, which are the root canals. I think to me, it's a general rule. In addition, probably we could look at cavitations as well.
Yeah, cavitations is a colloquial term for what's called chronic ischemic osteonecrosis. Chronic means it's been there a long time. Ischemic, there's a lack of oxygen. And osteoporosis is pitted bone. It doesn't heal properly. And the reason for that is the extraction technique, or the patient themselves could be immunely compromised and incapable of healing properly. And that's a whole nother lecture. But the fact is that the bone doesn't heal well and becomes a cesspool for bacteria. Prior to beating the board in my last case that they came against me, I started doing research showing a pathological condition and then the DNA that contributed to it. There's dental connections out of Colorado that will tell you the DNA of what the site had. But University of Texas and West Virginia and Indiana will have, any university should be able to do this in their pathology department, will tell you the condition of the bone, but it won't tell you the components of that condition, and that's the DNA. And so I started doing a study on that, which was coming out of my pocket, which would have cost me about $20,000 to $40,000 to do. But unfortunately, I had legal fees, so I didn't continue with that project. But I had done a project before, back in 2000, for a machine that we use, which is called the Cavitat. It's an ultrasonic imaging machine that will show if the bone is solid or not solid, healthy or not healthy.
And this is the bone that the tooth goes into.
Yes, it doesn't measure the density of the tooth, just the bone of the jawbone, if there's a tooth there or not. You must have a panoramic x-ray to be able to interpret the results, because you could see that there's all these teeth in somebody's jaw and all the bone around it is necrotic because of disease. So what was interesting was it was approved by the FDA right off the bat. And then due to politics, it had to go through a second
the Cavitat machine.
Yeah, the Cavitat machine, which showed the bone density. It actually was very strange because 3 days after it got the highest rating possible for a diagnostic machine, a new committee was formed with members of a professional dental organization that tried to get it unlicensed. Never, ever been done before in the history of the FDA.
Why do you think they wanted to do that?
They didn't want the truth to be known.
Because
there was problems,
yeah.
And this machine turned out to only be 99.6% accurate out of over 1,300 scans with 1,300 biopsies.
Now, I have found using KST, we look at teeth, we ask the body which tooth is a problem. We found it to be pretty accurate, but I find that a lot of times we'll get a yes, significant, meaning oral infections, cavitations, where wisdom teeth were taken out, or where there are root canals, in addition to the toxic root canal.
Yes, and I have graduated your class.
Yes.
I've had the pleasure of lecturing, and I get a kick out of these guys coming to me because I know how to adjust people and how to test them. And so I have all these chiropractors coming up to me and asking if I'll teach them how to do the mouth or even the body. Your technique is probably the simplest and easiest technique and most accurate that I've seen, because you can go and spot on exactly what's bothering a patient.
Thank you. And we found that a lot of times I or one of the people using KST will find an area in the jaw or the tooth, whatever, that has a problem, and the dentist will not see it on x-ray, but it would go in anyway at the insistence of the patient and say something like, oh my God, how could I have missed this?
Because it doesn't always show up radiographically, and even when it does show up, because I have a 3D cone beam, which is a computerized topography of the jawbone, and you can see things in a 3D manner. And many of the doctors who are looking at it do not know how to use the density reading that you can go in and show that the density around these areas are very, very slight. They're not good.
Those 3D cone beams are amazing. You could look at from any angle. It's like you're there inside the body.
Yeah, you can turn the patient's head upside down if you like, or backwards. It's truly a great tool if a person knows how to read it. Now, I have sent in a few studies to a group called cone beam readers, and these are dental radiologists. And I always have to go back to them and say, what about the lack of bone density in the third molar area? Why didn't you identify that?
What do they usually say?
Duh. Duh. They don't recognize that because it's so prevalent. I can show you on, this is 3D, I can show you on 2Ds where it's not solid. So the problem is politics. Because if everybody went in and got their jawbones cleaned out where they should be, that would be an amazing feat. We wouldn't have enough surgeons to take care of it.
I was told that, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. You had told me once that most people, the majority of visits to dentists today are to repair the work done by other dentists.
Well, the problem is this. I use a service that you draw the patient's blood and you send it in, and within 72 hours, they'll come back with a list of products that are either good or not good for the patient. It says NS, not suitable, S may be suitable. And the reason they say may be suitable is the patient may have never been exposed to a particular material, and so it will say that it's not reactive. Put that material in their mouth, a month later they could be reactive.
Is that the Clifford's test?
Yeah, there are two tests on the market. The Clifford test I've used since 1994. They keep expanding what products that go into it. The Clifford test today is so thick that we have to put it on a disc and download it to our computer, because the problem is there's too much information to keep in a patient's chart, or we're going to have to buy more shelves.
But what this tells you is what is safe or not safe, or what is
It gives us
ideal.
I've been using it since 1994. What is that? 25 years. And what I found with the Clifford test was patterns. If I saw something wrong in one category, I could pretty much tell you if they couldn't take the white filling materials, I could tell you what other products they couldn't take that we normally use. So today, the big controversy is, do you put in implants? Some people can never take an implant. I don't care what the material is. I will put in a zirconium oxide implant, and I will not put in a titanium implant. Now, titanium is what everybody uses. It does not necessarily react to the blood or your immune system, but it creates a galvanic charge or electrical charges in the mouth, which happens to mess up something called amylase. Amylase is the first enzyme for digesting your food. And so what happens is you don't digest your food properly. It gets into your stomach. People over the age of 40 don't have enough hydrochloric acid to melt things down that need to be broken up. And you should be taking supplements for hydrochloric acid, especially M68. I take it with every meal. So what happens is you get leaky gut syndrome. Now, that leads to degenerative diseases because you're not getting the proper nutrition. Now, before we got started on our broadcast, you were saying, how do you address the mouth with cancer? Well, I think this is a very important deal, and I'm getting more and more cancer patients as I practice. And what we have found is if we get there early enough, not stage 4, maybe at the beginning of stage 3, if we get in there and clean up the jawbone, and we have to do this according to each patient, what their needs are and what their ability is to handle the surgeries and the other things, is we will first try to get their gums clean and make sure they're healthy. Second, we want to get all the metals out of their mouth. Now, many crowns have a metal base to them. And within that metal base, you're going to have gold, palladium, or platinum mixed with zinc, tin, copper, which causes different materials to create galvanic charges inside the saliva because the saliva is hydrophilic. So that, again, messes up your saliva and your amylase. Now you're not digesting your food again properly. People don't chew enough to get the food into a paste so your body can digest it. Now what happens is you're also not getting enough oxygen into your bodies, which is a big, big problem. And so one of the things that I have my patients doing is getting on nebulizers with colloidal silver in them, which will protect their lungs, and they are finding out that their lungs are getting clearer and they're breathing better. That also will kill anthrax and whooping cough, and theoretically, according to a study at the University of Texas Tech in 2003, the bubonic plague was also destroyed, and there was absolutely no damage to the host. So that's another way that people can be treated in this situation.
Where do you find this
Getting back to cancer, I have taken these conditions out on many, many people and have seen a reversal of cancer as a result. Now, one of the other problems that we run into is the chemotherapy, the taking out of gallbladders, the taking out of different organs has lowered that patient's ability to fight off disease themselves. So depending upon what capacity they have left to fight this disease is a big, big problem, because I can't guarantee anybody that something's going to work.
Right. They might be so weak and run down, they might not be able to respond.
Well, you know, it's an awful thing. One of my best friends died this last year, not from the cancer, but from the complications of surgery to their gallbladder. And they kept on putting in stents, but I got a Clifford test, and I sent the test to their physicians, stating that any material that has this component cannot be used in this man's body. Well, any metal was contraindicated for him in his mouth. And I'm talking about stents too, metal stents. And that's all they used in his gallbladder, and they eventually removed his gallbladder. In my opinion, unfortunately, that was the death sentence. He never recovered after that.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time. And although I could listen to you speak all day, you're absolutely fascinating, and you're a wonderful teacher, as you've shown at our seminars. Would it? I've gone to see you. My wife has gone to see you. We've flown out from Philadelphia to Mesa, Arizona. If people are interested in knowing more about your work, what's a good way for them to reach you?
Well, you can take a look at our website, which is My Dentist, MyDentist, AZ for Arizona.com. Now, we are working on a new website, so please be patient with us. I've had nothing but headaches with this group, and so another way to contact us is through info@mydentistaz.com, or you can call us at area code 602-363-9584. You can look also online at a place called the International Academy of Biological Dentistry and Medicine, or the IAOMT.org. And you can get information about other dentists similar to myself and see if there's somebody close. I've had patients come in from South Africa, all over Africa, India, Asia, Israel, Europe, North America and South America, Hawaii. So we're accustomed to having people coming in from out of town. And I have a wonderful staff. We're going to be short-staffed. We're hoping that the governor will open up the state coming May 1st. But we plan on opening up again. And we have retooled things for our patients and for our staff to make us so we are as compliant as possible, to the extent that we may even have people wait in their cars out in the parking lot, giving us a phone number so we can call them to come in, so they're not all crowded in our front rooms.
Well, hopefully all the social distancing will be over very shortly, and we can get back to being productive Americans again.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, you do as the Romans do, but if you take a look at the statistics for the state of Arizona, we have over 7 million people in this state, and less than 300 people have died, and that is a percentage of 0.00003.
My God, it's an epidemic.
Yeah, I think that unfortunately, when we look at the science, we're going to find out that the COVID fatalities were padded. In other words, these poor people who are in convalescent homes who are immunologically compromised, if they die and they had a runny nose or a cough, they were being classified as a COVID victim. Forget the fact that they had multiple system failures.
Yeah, I've seen that here in Pennsylvania, speaking to people that know how statistics are being harvested, might be the right way.
Well, the best way of saying it is figures can lie and liars can figure.
Well said.
So it's unfortunate. It's time for us to get back to normal life. We're going to find out that many of these truths are going to be self-evident, and people are starting to question the legalities of what our government has done. But you will start seeing the red states, not to get into too much politics, are going to open. The blue states, unfortunately, are trying to extend it more. And what we're seeing in Wisconsin and Minnesota, I pray the governors there will come to their common sense, because this is not an epidemic outside areas of like New York and Jersey. They have large numbers there, and I would be concerned. I'm not flying to go see Lady Liberty tomorrow, but I would be very, very comfortable going to many areas of the world because you take precautions and you keep your immune system up. Make sure you're taking your vitamin C, 5,000 to 10,000 grams a day. You're going to be fine.
Yeah, and don't drink the water.
But you still have to breathe the air.
Oh, that's well. Well, Dr. Mike, thank you. I could talk to you, as I said, all day. You're just a font of wisdom, and I hope we'll do this again soon.
Well, if you invite me, the answer is yes. We just got to find a time.
Thank you. Thank you again. And I hope to see you at a KST seminar. I'd love for you to give another talk when we can get the scheduling together.
Do you need money to fund your idea, product, or service? Are you ready to take your business to the next level but need capital to get it done? Kevin Harrington has heard more than 50,000 pitches and knows how to help you make the perfect pitch to get the funding for your entrepreneurial dream. He's distilled the process down in his perfect pitch cheat sheet, and it's yours for free. Just text PITCH to him right now at 727-888-2100. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 right now and claim your free perfect pitch cheat sheet. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 to start funding your dream today.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.